So now if we go direct in the address bar to a profile, for example 345, this works, it updates the component. But it would be nice to be able to output some links to these different profiles as well. So let's do that inside the navbar component. I'm going to go over here to the navbar component, and then what I'll do is create some data down here, which will be essentially user IDs. So we'll say user IDs, and I want you to imagine that these were received from some kind of database or something like that. We will do this kind of thing in the future. Okay, so these user IDs are going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have these 4 users and an ID for each one. Now, what I'd like to do is output a link inside the nav to a profile page for each one of these users. So how are we going to do that? Well, first of all, what we'll need to do is cycle through this data. So then, underneath this UL, what I'll do is a H2, first of all, which says user profiles. And then underneath that, we'll do another UL tag. And inside here, we'll do an li tag for each one of these user IDs. So li, and then inside that, we need to use the directive v-4 to cycle through the data. Now then, I'm going to say for ID in user IDs. And don't forget, we also need the key property, and we need to data bind to it. So data bind key, and that has to equal some unique key for this particular element. Now we know we have the ID, but we can also use the index. So I'll use that. Remember, we can grab the index by surrounding this in parentheses. We get the ID first, then the index of the position of this element in the array. Then we can add on the index right here. Okay, so inside this li tag, what do we want to do? Well, we want to output a link for each of these different profiles. So we'll say router link, first of all, and this is going to go to somewhere or other. Now we need to use a bit of data binding here, because what I'd like to do is pass through an object similar to the object up here, where we said the name of this particular route is about. Now in this case, the name is going to be view profile. That's what we call this in the route file right here, view profile. So we're saying, okay, this link is going to link to that component. Now, we need to pass through another option here, because we need to also pass through a route parameter, one of these things. Because if we say we just want to go to the profile page, then we don't know whose profile we're going to. We need to pass through that route parameter as a second option as well. So we can say params, and this is an object in itself. And then we say the name of the route parameter that we want to pass through here. That's the user underscore ID. Remember, that was defined right here, user ID. And this user ID is going to be equal to the ID right here, which is 1, 2, 3, or 4. Does that make sense? So in each case now, what we're doing is creating a router link for each user or each ID here in the array. And we're linking to the view profile component and passing through a parameter, which is the ID of each of these different users here, right? So each router link will have a different route parameter passed through, 1, 2, 3, or 4. So now inside, let's do a span tag, and then in there we'll say profile, and then output the ID as well. So if we save this now, view this in a browser, we should see this navigation here, profile 1, profile 2, profile 3, and profile 4. Now if we click on this one, we can see the address up here goes to /profile/1. We see that right here as well. If we go to 3, then it becomes 3, and down here 4 becomes 4, etc. So that's cool. That's how we're using now this router link tag to direct us to the view profile component, but also it allows us to pass through this params option to say the user ID parameter is going to be this ID right here. So we're dynamically creating these links pretty easily now.